You're listening to the Dibbly-Dobbly Podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page as well. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Dibbly-Dobbly Podcast. On today's episode of the podcast, we review the 5th T20 International between New Zealand and Australia. It's the Dibbly-Dobbly Podcast, and let's get started. Let's recap the scores from the 5th T20 International between New Zealand and Australia. Australia batted first and made 8 for 142 from their 20 overs. Matthew Wade top scored with 44 off 29 balls. Ish Sodhi took 3 for 24 off his 4 overs for New Zealand. New Zealand chased down the runs to finish 3 for 143 from 15.3 overs. Martin Guptill top scored with 71 off 46 balls. And Riley Meredith took 2 for 39 from his 4 overs for Australia. New Zealand won by 7 wickets and win the series 3-2, and Martin Guptill was named man of the match for his 71. What were some of the key factors to deciding this match between New Zealand and Australia? New Zealand's bowling was key to keep Australia to 142. New Zealand couldn't do that in the last game after conceding 156, where they should have kept Australia under 150. But they took wickets at regular intervals, which stopped Australia's momentum. The partnership between Martin Guptill and Devon Conway was key to New Zealand chasing this turtle down, which sealed them the game and the series. Those were the key factors in this 5th T20 International, which led to New Zealand winning this game and the series 3-2. Let's have a look at how New Zealand performed in this 5th T20 International. We'll start with their batsmen. Conway 36, Guptill 71, Williamson 0, Phillips 34 not out, and Chapman 1 not out. Let's have a look at their bowlers. Sodhi took 3 wickets, 2 wickets each for Southey and Bolt, 1 wicket for Chapman, no wickets for Santner and Phillips. That's how New Zealand performed as a team in this 5th T20 International. A very dominant performance from New Zealand in this game. Obviously, New Zealand returning back to their best. Obviously, the last 2 games of the series, they didn't really play to their best. In this game, they returned to their best, and it was a pretty dominant display from them. Their bowling performance to restrict Australia to 142 was a good bowling display from New Zealand. Their bowlers executed their plans, executed their lines and lengths. They were consistent in their lines and lengths as well. Bowled to their fields. They executed their skills as well. And they took wickets at regular intervals, which pretty much slowed the momentum in the Australian innings. And Australia couldn't really get going after losing wicket after wicket. So New Zealand did very well to squeeze and put the pressure on Australia during this deciding match of this T20 series. So the bowling performance was very good from New Zealand. The batting performance in this game was much better from New Zealand, as in games 3 and 4. Obviously, they were asked to chase again New Zealand for the 3rd time in this series in a row. And obviously, as we know what happened in the last 2 games, they couldn't chase down the turtle New Zealand. They struggled. But in this game, chasing 142, obviously going to back yourself to chase that turtle down. And they did, obviously. That was helped by Guptill and Conway, who put on 106 for the first wicket, pretty much taking the pressure off New Zealand, really. And after that partnership, really, New Zealand just got over the line, really, in terms of winning this game easily in the end, finishing the game in 15.3 overs. So they had another 5 overs to spare. So all thanks to that partnership between Guptill and Conway of 106, as I said before, which pretty much relieved the pressure off New Zealand, and they were able to just work, just pretty much milk the bowling, really, to get to the target of 142 and to win this match by 7 wickets and win the series 3-2. I think this was a very good comeback from New Zealand in terms of winning this series after losing the last 2 games and knowing that the series is locked all at 2-2, knowing that they had to win this game to win the series. New Zealand, at the start of the series, led 2-0 after winning the first 2 games. They were pretty dominant in those first 2 games, and unfortunately for them, they lost the next 2 games. They sort of lost their way in the last 2 games of the series. But in this game today, they were back to their best. They were dominant from ball 1. A pretty clinical performance from them with both bat and ball. The fielding was good. They fielded well. Their ground fielding was good as well. And overall, it was a pretty good team effort from New Zealand to bounce back and win the series 3-2. So this will give them tremendous confidence heading into the T20 World Cup, and knowing that their players that they've chosen in this squad during this series are getting the job done for New Zealand, as they did in the first two games. Not so much in the other two games, but in the last game here of this series, they have definitely got the job done for New Zealand. So once again, a very dominant display from New Zealand in this game, and they deserved their series win. Let's have a look at how Australia performed in this fifth T20 International. We'll start with their batsmen. Philippe 2, Finch 36, Wade 44, Maxwell 1, Stoinis 26, Agar 6, and Mitchell Marsh 10. That's how the batsmen performed. Let's have a look at the bowlers. Meredith took 2 wickets, a wicket for Jai Richardson, no wickets for Ashton Agar, Kane Richardson, and Zampa. That's how Australia performed as a team in this fifth T20 International. Wasn't Australia's greatest performance in this series compared to games 3 and 4 in terms with the bat and the ball. Australia's batting in this game was poor. They couldn't get the momentum in their innings because wickets were falling at regular intervals and they couldn't back up partnerships. New Zealand were bowling well and they could only manage 142, which wasn't enough on this surface in Wellington. Also, they didn't back up partnerships like they did in games 3 and 4. Their shot selection was poor at times, which led to batsmen getting out. The bowling display was poor, probably Australia's worst bowling performance in this series since games 1 and 2. They didn't execute their skills, not consistent in their lines and lengths, and didn't bowl to their fields. The fielding was okay, and the ground fielding was okay as well. Overall, a disappointing performance from Australia after doing so well to bounce back in this series, after being 2-0 down. They were expecting to win this series after bouncing back from 2-0 down. But 3-2 isn't a bad result. They can take a lot out of this game going forward as a team. A great result for New Zealand to win the series 3-2. After leading 2-0 to then losing the next 2 games, then bouncing back in the last game to win the series is a great effort. Australia, on the other hand, will be disappointed to lose the series after doing so well to bounce back from 2-0 down. Well, that's the end of the innings to close the play for this episode of the podcast. Be sure to subscribe and click the bell to get the latest episodes of the podcast, and like and share our Facebook page. Until next time, keep safe and bye for now.